And thank you for taking out the time. I'm really hoping this session is useful. As Kanika said, my name is Malvika Grover, and I've been working in consulting for the last 5 years now. And I work with PwC I'm based out of Dubai, and I work specifically in education and skills strategy and operations consulting. So again, welcome all. And I know all of you must have come with some expectations about the session. You guys have already attended a bunch of career cafes previously, as from what I've seen. So if there is something specific that you want me to cover, why don't you just write it on the chat? Kanika here will help me out and just figuring out if whatever I've spoken has covered everything or not. But if there's something specific that you'd like to know, make sure you write it there in the chat for Kanika to see, yeah? And then we can take it later and make sure that's answered. So just to explain the structure of the session and how we'll go through the session today, I'd like to keep it as interactive as we can, given this medium and given the chats. So what I'll be covering is one is going to be my own personal career journey as to how I've navigated different employers and different challenges, because you guys are facing obviously COVID, right? But everybody, literally everyone, whoever is going through any sort of career journey faces some challenges or the other. So it's yours is a global pandemic phenomena which everybody is dealing together, but so has everybody, either the financial crisis or the aftermath of it, or if I'm in the Middle Eastern region, we've been going through a slump for a very, very long time. So all of us have gone through something or the other which has affected us personally with our career. But career is again a long-term game. It's not a short sprint, it's a marathon. So all of us have figured out ways to overcome that. So I'll talk a bit about that. Then I'll also talk about the lessons I've learned throughout my career journey and which will be useful for you guys at this stage. And then we'll dive into something more about consulting as to what I feel, if you are considering a career in consulting and you're serious about consulting, then at this point, what are some things that can really, really help you? And as we're talking about future proofing, so making sure that you're a ready person as a consultant and you are building enough, credibility that you will always be sought after. So we'll talk about a little bit of that. And then we'll leave a big chunk of time for questions at the end of the session where you can ask me literally anything. So the way I want you to ask these questions is that as I'm going through the session, you can keep writing your questions and Kanika will be noting them down. And she, at the end of the session, she'll sort of, be moderating the question answer and she'll try and collate all the questions together because a bunch of you might have the similar question. So, and then she can ask me in the end. And then we'll do another round. If I've missed anything, we can always ask that. So since all of you are on mute, I'm going to assume your silence means an okay, and I'll go ahead. So Kanika, just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, sure. I can see your screen now.
Okay, excellent. Just give me a second. Okay. Awesome. So again, welcome to the session. We'll start a little bit about myself, that how I have navigated through my journey. I see a lot of you have sent me LinkedIn requests, so I have a feeling you've already gone through my LinkedIn profile and would probably know this already, but I'm going to try and keep it interesting and tell you the stuff that you've not seen on my LinkedIn. Yeah. So I have studied, so we're starting from the beginning and then we'll go where I am. So it's like a sort of timeline of myself. So I started with economics honors and I started in Jesus Mary College in Delhi University. It was a great 3 years for me, extremely not very focused on academics. I was a part of this organization called ISEC. I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but it's a youth-run organization, and it's in 120 countries, and it's extremely interesting. We facilitate exchange programs for people from one country to another, and you can work either in a corporate setup or in a NGO or like a development sector. So I was mostly focused towards that, and let's say academics was like 20% of my life, but I still managed to do pretty okay. So we can consider it a success. But if you talk about career aspirations, I really didn't have much. Like I was pretty confused about what do I want to do. A part of me wanted to do marketing, a part of me wanted to do something else. But there was just one portion which was completely consistent, which was like, okay, I really want to change the world. So that's not a very tangible aspiration, but that's what it was. So if anybody would just ask me, I'm like, oh yeah, I really, really want to change the world. How? I don't know. Where? Don't know. But that was literally the only thing. So since I work in ISEC, and which is an international exchange provider sort of a way. So I thought, okay, it's the best thing to do, because I'm so convinced that ISEC is great, is obviously go for an international exchange, right? And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I believe in this and I want an international exposure. I'm going to go for an internship. And I chose Poland as the country because everybody was going to Poland for some reason. And it was the easiest to find, honestly. So I found an internship, which was for 6 months. It was with the Indo-Polish Chamber of Commerce, looked great on paper. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to do this. I had a lot of visa issues, fought a lot for the visa, but finally it happened. And I went for the internship, and it was like, it was a really, really bad internship, guys. I learned practically nothing. There was no job role for me. I didn't get paid on time. I was like, oh, so far. And guys, that time we didn't have WhatsApp, and we didn't have, I think Skype was still there, but we didn't have all of that. And Facebook was pretty new as well. So that was the only way of connecting. And no friends, no family, in a bad internship, stuck in a really, really small town in Poland. Um, so I thought to myself, okay, so either I can sit and cry about this decision that I've made, because my parents were also not for it, and it would be like, I told you so, don't go for this. But so I consciously decided, okay, that's not what I'm going to do. Let's just travel a lot. Let's make the best out of it. So that was my first lesson, which was that you can meticulously plan, and you can think about, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is going to be great. And it can turn out to be a really, really bad experience, but there can be some stuff that you can also take out of it. I learned really, like, this was my first taste of independence. It was the first time I was doing my own, making my own decisions, managing my own money, okay, international currency money. It was the first time I was traveling alone in places where, no English, nothing, and I was just relying on myself. I couch surfed a lot, which now I realize was super risky, but it was worth it, because I came back alive. So professionally, very, very bad year. Like, I think that year I didn't learn anything professionally. Personally, extremely, extremely good, learned a lot. And guys, I later realized how exotic it can look in your CV when you say, oh, I went for an internship to Poland, because nobody does that, or very few people do that. So it's always an interesting talking point, and I've used it in my interviews quite a bit. Like, it was interesting, it was adventurous, it was like very offbeat. No one really does it, but I did it, and it was great. So I spun it around, and I made a really cool story out of it. So that way it saved me. Professionally, nothing great. So then I came back, and my parents were like, see, this is what you wanted to do for 1 year, and you did that, and it wasn't as great as you thought it'll be. So now you need to study, because that's what good Indian students do, or Asian students do. You study more and you get your master's. And I was like, fine, I got my wish of taking a gap year or doing an internship abroad, but now I need to get in line. So I wanted to go to JNU and study economics, but by the time I came back, I missed my cutoff for the paper, for the entrance test. So I was like, okay, that's gone. And my parents were like, oh, you have to study this year. So I got into London School of Economics, but I just, like, there was a part of me who wasn't convinced with the amount of money I'm spending, and in the kind of degree or a job I'm going to get after that. It just didn't add up. So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to just study in India. And I went to this university called Terry University. It's in Delhi. It's not very well known or popular, but it is popular in terms of developmental studies. So it focuses a lot on sustainability and development economics. So ended up doing that, and ended up hating it. Wasn't too convinced that it's a great thing. Wasn't convinced that it is for me. Something wasn't fitting right. Like it wasn't, a program where I was so taken by it that, that's all I wanted to do. But I said, okay, fine, let's keep going. There was a time when I thought maybe I should drop out. And then, of course, it's pretty scary to just drop out of things that you don't like. Because we don't have too many people doing that around us. So I was like, okay, fine, I've already not wasted, but not studied for 1 year. So I need to do that. So I kept studying, and then you'll see the next step where 2011 to 11, I did an internship in a startup called Dharma Life. And it was the first time I actually worked in rural India. So it was about making village level entrepreneurs, which are selling socially relevant goods. So goods like solar lanterns, goods like glucose biscuits, energy drinks like vitamin supplement drinks for kids and infants and malnourished women. And they were trying to make village level entrepreneurs who would sell those products, and all the commission will go to them and not middlemen, right? So suppose if you have a Coke which distributes something, a lot of commission goes to Coke. So, but this was that the product margin actually just goes to the village level entrepreneur. And it was like opening of something big for me, because I realized that this is something which I really, really enjoy. Like this is my kind of a thing, and which I'm liking. And my whole aspiration of changing the world is something that, this something like this can probably fulfill it. So I was like, okay, I'm convinced. What I'm going to do is going to be social enterprise. I'm going to work in social enterprises, and I'm going to work in small scale businesses, and I'm going to change the world eventually, right? So that internship was excellent. I did my master's thesis on women and self-help groups, which is also greatly recognized. And they were after me that you should do your PhD, and this is what your PhD thesis topic could be, because I did a lot of primary work. But again, it wasn't fitting in well. So I took with my gut feeling that, okay, PhD is probably not for me, because, that's not the bent of mind you have. And I think by that time, you've already made these decisions. So I've already gone through a failed internship. I've already gone through a course which I don't like. So it gives you a little bit more confidence in at least things that you don't like, right? Because you don't want to keep doing the same mistake again and again and be into things which are not fitting with you. So I decided, okay, no PhD for me. But then I got to know about this organization called National Skill Development Corporation, NSDC. I don't know if you guys know it, but all your Skill India campaigns, and Modi has been promoting it a lot. So all of that is being done by National Skill Development Corporation. So it was a startup at that point. I was the 14th person who got into it. And it stemmed out of a new skills policy that India had. The skills policy was, I think, 2009. And that's when they decided that they need a PPP. So it is 50% government, and actually 51% government, 49% private. And that's when they realized, okay, let's start this. And we were a funding agency for skill development programs. So my job was extremely exciting. So we didn't have any database for skills in India, right? If you think about, okay, in Andhra Pradesh, how many skilled construction workers do we have, or semi-skilled construction workers do we have? How many skilled drivers do we have? Or what are the different grades of drivers? I don't know. I had no idea that there are grades of plumbers, and you could actually categorize them into skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled, and then try and chalk out a plan for them. So it was an extremely exciting place, and I started working a lot with policy development. So as I've written there, I've traveled 20 states, and which was mostly working with the state governments to understand how do they map their workers, and how, let's say, okay, in Rajasthan, in a place like Bikaner, if you have a lot of food processing industries, how do you actually make sure that you have skilled labor or skilled workers who can work in these food processing industries? Or in Chennai, if you have leather industry, how do you make sure there are enough workers who are skilled in leather production? So I thought that's a very nice space that I'm in. It's policy work, it's development work combined together. It's a lot of travel. What else does a young person want, right? It didn't have a lot of money, if I'm being very honest. Like it was good money in terms of social enterprise, but not great money. So I was very happy, great first job, having a good time, earning good money, traveling a lot. And anywhere you go, it was you're from government of India, so it was always like madam, and a lot of respect that way. So it's good, good place. But there was something that changed because okay, so I started dating my boyfriend, and he's now my husband, and he was based out of Dubai, and he he's like, okay, he wanted to go out somewhere, maybe US, UK, don't know, but be more mobile. And that got me thinking that I'm working only in development and in policy work and mostly in India, and that this profession doesn't really allow me a lot of mobility, because if I've done this kind of work, where do I really go? So it's either going to be India or it's going to be Africa. But if I'm really doing some on ground work, it has to be a developing country. So it doesn't sort of give me enough mobility that I would want. And obviously not even that much money. So if your aspiration after a while becomes that you want to be, you know, uh, monetarily successful, so this is not something which gives you that much money. So then two things started coming in my head. I don't have mobility with this job, and I don't have enough monetary security. So then the next thing that I thought could probably a mix was consulting, because if you look at consulting, it's basically problem solving, right? So whenever you become a consultant, all you're doing is trying to solve problems for your client. So it could be a strategy problem, it could be operations problem, it could be an implementations problem, or it could be a project management problem, or something that they are not able to do themselves, and that's why they outsource us and say that, okay, you guys do it for us. So I was in touch with the education team in KPMG. It was a fairly new team even then, because education wasn't seen as a very consulting heavy line. So it was a niche team. It was just a team of, I think, 12 people. It's a bigger team now. I think it's around 30 people, but it was 12. And they were doing mostly very niche projects with either the Ministry of Education or state level departments of education or big universities, right? Because there were a lot of universities who wanted to come to India or expand or merge um, or basically increase offerings or do partnership with other international firms. So I thought that's really interesting because it matches my two big interests. One is obviously education, and second, you're trying to make impact. So I found this to be a mid-level compromise where I am earning good money as well. I am still staying true to my own aspiration of making some big change, and I'm learning a lot more than I was learning in my old company, because consulting really pushes you a lot, especially if you're not from a management background or if you're not from an MBA. But most of you are. But if you're not, it really pushes you to think in a very, very different and a critical way. So I started working there, and that's when I realized that maybe because I was never convinced with my whole master's in economics, then maybe I should be getting an MBA, because if this is something which I like and consulting, I started enjoying it a lot more. There was a lot of travel involved as well, so I thought this is really matching a lot of things that I always wanted. So I thought an MBA is a good choice to do, and so I went to ISB, Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, and that was also a tough decision because I wanted to go to London Business School, then I wanted to go to INSEAD, but I think the monetary value wasn't just coinciding with how much I thought it's worth. But obviously, everybody thinks about it in a different way. But for me, ISB seemed like a good bang for the buck, and I got a scholarship as well. So that was great. 1 year there was really, really good. It was competing with a lot of engineers and a lot of math geniuses. And my only aspiration there was to actually land a great consulting job. I just wanted a great CGPA and get a consulting job. And I think a lot of you are doing your MBA, so you know what I'm talking about. So obviously I wanted the day zero placement, and that was all, like, I think 7 months of my life were just about working towards that day zero. Obviously I had a lot of fun, but that was my biggest aspiration at that point of time, to land a good consulting job. So day zero comes, and I did crack the day zero consulting job, which was Deloitte US India office. um, I wasn't 100% convinced with it, but what they do is once you have the offer, they apply for your H-1B visa. And a lot of people, what they do, if you get your visa, so that means you would be going to US and doing projects there. They stick on, and if you don't get it, then you try and find alternate options. So luckily I got my visa. So that was a big relief. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Because I have my visa and I can manage. I mean, it'll be a great experience, go to US, do consulting there, because US consulting is a lot more evolved and more mature consulting market. So that's obviously going to be a good one. And then maybe my husband can think of coming here as well. So it seemed like a win-win at that point of time. But once I entered and we got allocated our verticals, and I got real estate. So, and I was like, wait, how did that even happen? Because everything I've done is education, development, etc. And now they've given me real estate. But they were like, okay, sure. I mean, you can't fight that much. So I started working with the real estate sector. But what happened was, it was the year of elections in US, and Trump got elected for the first time. So obviously everything was on a hold, because everybody was waiting that who's going to win, and there's going to be a lot of turbulence depending on who wins. So the whole batch who joined didn't get to travel to US for 1 year. So we were stuck in the back office. We're not traveling. We have our H-1Bs in our hand, and I'm doing something which really doesn't fit with my own core or values, which is real estate. But somehow I continued for a year. I got married in between. Yeah, but then post my marriage, I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing real estate when it's not even exciting me at all? Or why am I doing US, India, where, I'm not even going to US, so it's not really a win-win. So that year professionally, again, wasn't the greatest for me, because it was good money, but it wasn't great experience. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do. And that really makes you think that, for a great job which you really like, it's a lot more than money. It's a lot more, I mean, 2 or 3 things need to align perfectly for you to be super happy. So I promised myself that, okay, next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure all of these things check, and that's the only way I'm going to take another job. Luckily for me, I started looking for a job in Dubai, because my husband was based out of here, and PwC wasn't hiring at that point at all. The market wasn't that good. Everybody told me, you're not going to get a job, and Middle East is not doing that well. So I was like, okay, fine, but our job is to try. So might as well try, and if something happens, it happens. So luckily I had a good network at that point of time with consulting and education sector and development sector, because I've been working for so long in this sector and meeting so many people. So I reached out to the senior partner in education in PwC Dubai, and set a meeting. And she told me that, I don't think we're hiring. So I said, it's fine. I just want to have a conversation. Even if you're not hiring, let me just talk to you and let me just see what is happening, or what's the market, or let me just share what I think about, education in the sector. I went and spoke to her. It was a good 2-hour meeting, and it was just literally my own sales pitch. That how much I know about education, how passionate I am about education, how much I want to work in education. So it felt a little bit odd, but it was literally 2 hours of just pitching myself to her, where she had no interest in hiring anyone. And luckily it worked. And I even said, to the point that I'd seen what the team is, and they had no Indian in their team. It was either British or Arabic. And I said, you are missing out on a very big regional diversity. You need an Indian on the team who understands that market, who understands South Asia, who can talk about these things and who can give examples. So I literally made small pointers for everything in which I can sell my own skill set. And luckily it worked. She said, okay, fine, let's just do 2 more rounds of interview and see if it really fits in with the other partners. And in a week, I had 2 other rounds. And after that, I had my job offer. So it works if you really, really put your heart and soul into it, which I think I did. And also because it was education and it was consulting, which both I realized is a really, really good fit for me. So I had so much belief in that this is right, that I could convince someone else that yes, I am right for this as well. So that was a good thing. 2 years I was there as a senior consultant. Then it's been a year since I've been a manager here, and having a great time. I'm working on mostly education projects with the government and the private sector, and I do a lot of policy work. I do a lot of strategy work. So till now, it's going well for me. Let's see what happens next. Yeah. So this is just generally how life has been for me. Um, but I would like to obviously talk about a little bit about the lessons I've learned over 7-8 years of working and just navigating different jobs, different kind of industries. Number one would be plan. Like, of course, plan what you want to do, and especially at the stage where you guys are, it is time to plan. Like, what interests you, what do you want to do, what kind of internships you want to do, what kind of people you want to talk to, what more exposure you want. But be flexible, because the times are not optimum, right? Everybody knows what's happening in the market. I don't want to talk about it because you guys must have spoken about it so much. So be flexible. Like, be like, okay, fine, this is my A, B, C, but even if I get D and I can make it work, I will make it work. So don't be rigid, be flexible, but obviously make a plan, because if you don't have a plan, it's not about being flexible. Then you're just doing anything that comes your way or taking up anything that you would get. And that's not going to keep you happy or satisfied, or, so obviously have a plan, but obviously be flexible. Second, prepare yourself. Upskill as much as you can. So I can't stress this enough. Upskill, 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 because you guys are at a great stage because you're just graduating or you graduated some time back. But the market is changing so rapidly that the more you upskill yourself, the more time you have in your hand and you upskill yourself, employers really, really value it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my next slide as to what I think you should be upskilling yourself with, if you want to be in consulting, that is. Third, network like you mean it, genuine connections. So I can't stress the fact how much networks help you. So all of you are working with ingenious spaces, and you're working in this global accelerator program, or whatever you are doing, you're meeting a lot of people through this program. So make the network like you mean it. So don't be like, oh, I met this person and I know this person, I'm just going to send a message to them on LinkedIn when I need a job. That won't be helpful. What will be helpful is if you've actually established a genuine connect with them. You've asked them a very genuine question, or you've done a follow-up email and asked them something and they've given you an answer about that, or something that genuinely interested you and you went and showed it, something which is one step more than saying, oh, hi, I just met you through this and this happened. Because these connections, so the first internship that I did, I actually go back to those people and keep them informed, and we've obviously now become friends, but it was my conscious effort to keep them informed about whatever I'm doing. So if I've moved here, I'll tell them I've moved here. This is what I'm doing. If I'm doing a pro bono project, I'll tell them this is what I'm doing. Or if I had a month free, I would go to them and say, do you want me to help you with something? Can I do a pro bono project for you? Or can I help you think of something? Or can I make something for you? So these kind of genuine connections are what really take you through tough times, because right now we have COVID or this pandemic, but we could have something else later as well. So have those connections who will actually bond with you and give you genuine advice and genuine help. Then experiment and explore. So obviously I think very few people have a very linear trajectory or very linear focus, and they just know that this is what I want and they'll go for it. So those people are very lucky. I wasn't, and I don't know if many people are. So experiment, explore, and that's not only through your actual jobs, but also through anything else you're doing with your time. So read about different industries, participate in different conferences, participate on webinars, participate in different things, subscribe to different things. So experiment and explore is critical, and especially if you want to be a consultant, because what happens with us is you go to a client site, right? And if the client side is working on something, they'll just ask you about that. And as a rule, they think consultants have a lot of answers. So if you don't come up with a good answer, which you can, which is well thought of, or which shows that, okay, you do know your stuff, they'll just discredit you immediately. So this experimenting and exploring also helps you as your career as a consultant. So do that, and especially when you have time, really do that. Now the fifth one is an equation, right? So I've studied economics, I'm a consultant, so obviously I have to put in an equation. E plus R is equal to O. I wish you guys were like in front of me or asked any guesses, but I'm just going to tell you what I think what it means. So E is an event, R is a reaction, and O is an outcome, right? So every outcome is your event plus reaction. Event is already happening. It's happening already. COVID is here. You can't do anything about it. Recession will come. You can't do anything about it. So that's the event. Your reaction, the reaction is actually in your hand. What do you do with that? Do I just sit and mope and cry, or do I upskill myself, or do I go and actually do some pro bono projects, or whatever it is? That's the reaction. So, and the outcome is always going to be a plus of 2. So make sure you keep that with you. And this is applicable in very, very small things as well. So if you're in a meeting and there's something which is not going your way, that's the event, and the reaction you give will actually lead to the outcome. So I use this principle on a daily basis, honestly, and it really helps me, and especially when you start leading teams and you start progressing, this is something which will be super helpful. Okay, so this was generally about me and my career journey and the lessons that I've learned. And if you have any questions about this, make sure you're typing it in, and Kanika is consolidating them. Can I ask you something? I see a lot of people who are in the waiting room. Are you able to accept them, or should I do something?
I've already accepted everyone. Yeah.
Okay, because I keep getting pop-ups. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. So we'll move to the next one, which is if you're truly interested in being a consultant, right? There's some specific action points which I would like to recommend, because I've been doing this and I've moved a lot of companies. I was in KPMG, then I went to Deloitte, now I'm in PwC. I interviewed with Parthenon and I said no to them because so if you guys don't know, Parthenon is a niche education consulting firm, but now it was taken over by EY. So I have had, and mostly all my friends work in McKinsey. So so there are a few things that I've picked up over the years, which I think will be good to share with you guys. So some specific action points if you really want to be a consultant and you want to sustain as a consultant. So the first one is know your style. Guys, I can't stress how important this is. It's extremely important, because every consulting firm, or like a bunch of consulting firms, they have a different style. So I'm not sure what your guys' career aspirations are, but there's a set called Big Four, which is PwC, Deloitte, EY, and KPMG. Then there's your strategy houses, which is your BCG, Bain, and BCG, Bain, and McKinsey. And then you have your smaller boutique firms in every country. So you have your Oliver Wyman, you have like Parthenon used to be. So they're going to be smaller boutique firms, which are typically smaller number of people, but and they typically tend to do very specific work. So you'll find like a boutique firm which only does policy work, or tourism, or education, or those kind of small, specific, streamlined industries. So all three of them have a very, very different work style. If you pick up the strategy houses, they're going to be a lot more aggressive. They have a up or out model. So up and out model is basically either you move up the scale. So every 2 years, you're expected to have a promotion. So if you join as an associate, you have to become junior. If you join as a junior associate, you have to become a senior associate. Then you have to become an engagement manager. Then you have to become associate partner, then partner. If you don't do that progression in the way that they have mapped it for you, either 2 years, 1 year, or whatever it is, you're asked to leave. So you're told that you need to leave, and they help you find another job. So that's how aggressive it is. That's how competitive it is. All the people that typically succeed in these kind of firms are extremely type A personalities, are competitive and thrive on that competition. So if you're not that sort of a person, it's anyway, you anyway have a disadvantage going in because you're not going to be working in that style. This is something which I knew about myself very well, that I'm not that competitive. I don't like working under pressure that much. I don't like always thriving on competition, and that's not something which fuels my fire. So that's definitely not something that I want to do, and that's why I consciously stayed clear of strategy houses. Not that they were dying to take me, but I didn't even try that much for them. So that's good because they do offer a lot more money than your normal big fours. So I remember the offer that I accepted in ISB and the offer that I could potentially get was at least 2.5 times. But I knew it's not gonna sustain for me at all. It'll be like 3 months and I'll be out. So there's no point in starting something like that and then not seeing it through. Then you have the big four culture, which is slightly, because big fours tend to be bigger in size, so they have a lot more people. They have a lot more capacity. The kind of projects they do are not that strenuous. Obviously, it's stressful. All consulting firms are, but the level of stress is much lesser. You find teams which are more collaborative. There's lesser competition. There's no up or out. You can sustain in the same level for a very, very long time. Like suppose if I consciously choose to be a manager or consciously choose to be a senior manager for the next 4 to 5 years, I can do that and I won't be asked to leave. Because there are people who don't want more responsibility as you're going ahead, right? So I know a lot of my colleagues in PwC UK who have been senior managers for the last 5 or 6 years, and they want to be senior managers. They don't want to do sales. They don't want to move forward, and they're happy with that zone. So Big Four helps you do that. And Big Four has a lot more coaching, has a lot more mentoring, a lot more hand holding. So I knew that is something which is more my style. I like that style a lot more, where everything is a little bit more collaborative and I'm not pushed to perform, but I'm just told, okay, do a good job and it's gonna be good. It's less money, but mental peace over money. It's not bad money, it's good, but it's not that much. And then you have boutique firms, which are smaller, which are more targeted, which are more aggressive. But you get a lot more invested in it as well because they're small teams, so you feel like it's your firm. So I know a lot of people who like that kind of ownership, where they're saying that, okay, it's a small firm, all of us contribute to it, and the firm only grows if we are doing a good job. So they like that kind of ownership and they like that kind of responsibility. And obviously you have to choose which industry and similarly choose your boutique firm. So that's also a great option, but if you already know what kind of industry you want to get into. So the thing about Big Four is that you have a lot of industries. So any industry you can think of, you will have a team. We have sustainability, we have urban cities, we have security, we have defense, literally anything you can think of, we would have a team, aviation, working on it. So it gives you a big playground that, okay, if I'm not enjoying this that much, I can probably do 1 or 2 projects in another team and see what I like now. But you don't have the luxury to do that in the boutique firm because you've already chosen those smaller teams. So the first one is know your style, understand what you like, what you thrive in, what pushes you the most, and then choose the employer wisely. Then we have something called skills over education. So I think there was a big mindset in olden times where it was a lot about, okay, you have to have the IIT IIM combination and then you will do a great job in consulting. But I think it's changing a lot. I've seen it over the years myself. When I graduated from my master's in economics, the willingness to take me as a consultant was very less as compared to somebody who's from an IIM or IIT background. But now it's changed a lot, and now it's become skills over education. So I think it's a great opportunity for, if you have some time in your hand, do a lot of upskilling. So the kind of skills that I see in demand, digital is like #1 skill that I'm seeing, not just I'm sure it's in India as well, Middle East, but world over. So if you know how to make dashboards with Power BI, with Tableau, if you know business analytics, or if you can do anything on digital platforms, if you can do coding, if you can do automation. So these things are really, really, really coming up, and they're getting, so earlier what used to happen was in consulting, we used to have a smaller team, which would typically focus on this. and they were the ones who would be like, okay, now, can you help us with your digital work? But now it's getting embedded into every team that you're working in because the clients want it so much. And if the clients want it, we have to respond. So digital is picking up a lot. So in PwC, we've been given courses mandatory courses that we have to do for enhancing our digital skills. Then economics. So again, economics is something I'm not just saying learn economics or microeconomics, but hone your economic skills, economic analytics, econometrics, financial models. So those kind of things are always in demand. Like I've seen them in the last 5 years. It's only picked up, and people are actually making specialized teams which are focusing only on economics or doing predictive analytics or providing support to different monetary institutes. So that's picking up a lot, and that if that's something which is interesting to you, you should upskill yourself in that. Then urban planning is again something that we're seeing come up a lot, because if you see, even with the pandemic, a lot, if there's a big correlation between how your urban planning was done and how much the virus has spread. So if you look at the Middle East, we are at a 90% urbanization level, our cities. So that's why it spreads a lot more and faster and it's more aggressive. But if you go to a place which the urban, I think there's an index, it's called, the urbanization index is lower, it's going to spread lower. So all of these things are starting becoming very interesting, especially now that we're cramped for space. Urban planning is becoming a big thing. And then the fourth one where I see there's a lot of traction is sustainability. So we have expanded our sustainability team. We've started getting a lot more business in sustainability. There are a lot of complex problems which are coming up with both government and the private sector. So this is again something which I feel if you want to upskill yourself, this is a great place to do. And now obviously you guys will know this more than me, but the digital course is available literally on anything. So you go to Coursera or any other platform and you'll find literally any course on any topic that you want, and which you can link to your LinkedIn profile and show that you actually know these things. So make sure you do that. Then choose a niche. So now this is a double-edged sword, honestly. If you choose a niche that, this is something that you really enjoy, it could be aviation, tourism, anything, right? Anything which you really enjoy, pick that and then run with it, because the consulting teams really appreciate it, and it's not every day that you find people who are very sure about what they do and have the knowledge about what they want to get into. So that's always a really big win-win. Having said that, it's a double-edged sword, because if you're a bit of a generalist in consulting, it's easier for them to take you and place you anywhere, right? But if you want to be a generalist, make sure that your core skills are very strong. For example, financial modeling, let's say, right? It's not an industry specific thing, but it can be applied to any industry. But still, you're choosing something that you're going to be very good at. So if you're very good at financial modeling, you're still being a generalist, but there's a tool that you know really well, and that can be applicable. So pick up something. So either pick an industry or pick up some skill that you're going to be very good at, and that can become your USP or your selling point when you send out your CV or you're talking to someone or an interview, so that they can be like, okay, if I take this guy from day one, he'll be ready to do this, right? Which is a big advantage in these days, because honestly, there's no time to pick people and train. So take this time to do something like this. Then the fourth is network and mobility. So this is, again, I can't stress enough how important it is to build your network and build it in a way that you know people in different industry, or if you've already chosen that this is the industry I like and I want to work in this, make sure you're making your conscious network in that industry and in the geography you want to go as well. So for example, like a personal example, because my husband was based out of Dubai, when I got into ISB, I was constantly looking for people in Middle East. When I got into Deloitte, I was constantly looking for projects which would somehow connect me to the Middle East. I was telling my own network that I had that if you know anybody in Middle East, please let me know, please keep me connected. So you have to do those conscious networks and conscious mobility, so that you're making yourself more agile. So tomorrow if something comes up somewhere, you're like, yes, I can go and I can do it, right? So make sure you're networking with a purpose. You're networking consciously. You're building your network very, very consciously in the kind of geography you want and in the kind of industry you want. And the fifth one is resilience. So this is something which is critical, super important, because what you're doing in consulting is just problem solving. So the problems that come in any industry become your problem. So if COVID has come and now everybody in the education sector has been forced to go digital, I have to help solve digital problems. But I'm not even a digital person. I don't know much about digital. And if that's the case, I have to upskill myself very, very fast. So, and I have to be very resilient, because I need to make sure that if that's the problem which is coming, I need to absorb it, and I need to be ready to help with that. I have been working a lot with research projects, and I don't even like research. I have nothing to do with research, but if that's the project which has come, I have to be strong, and I have to be like, okay, fine, I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to learn a lot about it. I'm going to make sure I know all the best case practices there are in the world, and I'm going to make sure my client has the trust in me. So you need, that's the thing with consulting, you need two levels of trust. You need the client trust, and you need your team trust. So there are always two people that you're trying to, two parties you're trying to please. So resilience always helps. You will always not be right. You will be challenged a lot, you will be wrong a lot, but if you're resilient enough and you keep giving it all you've got, you will eventually succeed. And that's a quality that everybody really appreciates, because the clients can be very, very difficult. And normally, like, even when I'm building a team, I always look for people who are very, very resilient and who've given me examples of being resilient, because I know the client is tough, the client is going to be challenging. So I don't want a team who's weak and who will be like, oh, I can't do this, or I give up. So this is something that I've seen helps a lot. Okay, so these are my top 5, if I can say, points for having a, making, first of all, making your, getting yourself into consulting, and then making sure that you're always doing a good job and you're progressing. So that's about it from my side. So this is everything that I thought I should share with you guys, but I'm very happy to take questions on anything about whatever I've spoken so far. So feel free to ask anything that you want to.
So we have one question right now which popped up when you were talking about knowing your style. Mm-hmm. So Ayush is asking, how would you recommend us to understand our work style? By working with everyone and then analyze, or is there any other way to go about it?
No. So I think the best way to go about it is, I don't know if you guys have done personality tests, but they are extremely useful. So there are a lot of these personality tests which are well known, and which a lot of people really would recommend. If you want, I can send in some names, but those personality tests are very, very useful to understand your own type. So they would give you things like, oh, okay, you're analytical, or you are a thinker, or you are a leader, or you are an empathetic person. So they give you like codes like this, and then that's very, very helpful to understand what kind of person you are. And then, so for example, if you're extremely analytical, right, and you're empathetic, or you're not a leader or aggressor or driver, you would know that you don't like to be pushed in that way. So that's a great way of just understanding yourself first, and then obviously observing yourself. So even you don't need to be in a corporate setup to do that. So even when you're doing a group assignment, right, those are things that you can always understand in a group assignment, that what kind of role am I taking? So am I becoming the person who just likes to make sure everybody's happy, everybody's working together, everybody's contributing, or am I the person who's like, I don't care about anyone. I just want to get this done and I'm going to do it in the best way? Or are you the sort of person that who thrives when you find a really good person who's challenging you a lot and you're like, oh, I'm going to show it to this guy that I'm going to I'm going to come up with a better analysis than you. So this can help you really figure out that what kind of a person you are and where you would fit in better. Ayush, I hope I answered your question.
Mm-hmm. Amish is asking if you could shed some light on the financial sector of consulting, as he's confused between investment banking and consulting.
So can you tell me what do you mean by financial sector and consulting?
Amish, could you just type in what you exactly mean by financial sector in consulting so that she can give a
Could you tell us financial sector of consulting? So Amish, I just want to ask you, so do you want to know that how consulting firms are doing financially, or do you want to know financial sector in consulting? As you work in education, there must be a financial sector. Yes, of course. No, there's a big, in fact, I mean, it's a really, really, really big sector because you have a lot of things. So you have a tax department, you have deals, you have financial structuring, you have mergers and acquisition teams, which all broadly relate to finance. You have debt raising teams, you have uh, so basically anything you can think in the financial sector, there will be a team which is working on that, and that's always a hot market. It's difficult to crack into because they look for very specific backgrounds. So if you want to get into deals, let's say, they would look for a deals background, or they would make sure that you have an MBA and you've specialized in finance, or you have some prior experience in the fin sector. So it's difficult to get through, it's difficult to crack, but there are huge financial teams in consulting. What technical skills? Yeah, honestly, because I'm not into financial consulting, so I'm not the right person to ask, Amish. But I mean, even if I tell you, I might be misleading you. So I think I can't answer that.
Any other questions? I'm still waiting for, let's just give it 10 more minutes for the question answer. So just type in your question so that, okay, what's specific? So Avni is asking what specific skill sets would be appreciated in Big Fours?
Okay, so the Big Fours are like, I mean, if you're just talking about Big Four in any industry, like industry agnostic, for consulting, you need to be analytical for sure. So they always test you on your analytics. So basically your basic maths, your problem solving skills. So for consulting, I don't know if you guys have done case prep, but we do a lot of case preps, and there are a lot of books available for that as well online, which give you like a problem. So they'll lay down a big problem for you, saying, okay, this is a company and they're not able to, the profits have been going down, but they've been doing this. So what do you think in your, what propose as a solution? So there are a lot of case preps that are available. So that is something really, really important, because that is a mixture of your problem solving skills, of your analytics, because it's got a lot of math component to it as well. And it's about how fast you are, because you have to do it under a time limit. And I think it also, because you have to speak that answer, it also shows the way you're able to communicate the answer. All of that, which are really important. So if you actually go through any of those books for case preps, they give you a lot of things that you should work on.
I think then our virtual global apprenticeship will definitely be helping them, because they have to pitch the solutions the companies have.
Yeah,
given them problems, problem statements about.
So I think you know what they're doing now, like the pitch, because it's a month or a 2-month program, right?
Yes, 2 months.
So what they do in your consulting interviews typically is that they give you a problem which is maybe half a page long, and you have to answer that within like spontaneously. So they'll just give you the case, you have to read it out, and then you have to ask them for more information, and then you have to give the solution right away. So it's like a mini case, like everything is compiled into one. It gives you literally 10 minutes to think about it, and then you have to answer.
So maybe our program is a good first step for them to start this.
Yeah, of course.
Great. So Gaurav is asking, is it always to solve a problem of the client creatively, or rather what approaches are used?
So Gaurav, it's very different for a lot of things. It's obviously a lot of creativity, but once you get into consulting, you'll realize there are a lot of frameworks which have already been given to us. And if you look at the case prep books that I'm talking about, if you pick up any one, they will actually, the first thing that they will do for you is give you some of the most famous models that we use for solving problems. So for example, it's the strategy problem, right? So there's already been like a framework which is there that if you're making a strategy for a particular firm, these are the 6 things that you should consider and how they fit together. Or BCG has created a matrix which you should use for priority matrix. So there's some frameworks, because we use them so much in consulting, that they've become like, actual frameworks which everybody uses. But you can only take them for certain way. I mean, you can only use them for certain things, but you obviously have to get creative and you have to work with your teams and you have to come up with a solution which fits the client. So you can use some framework, but if the client doesn't like it, you'll have to do something more. So it is a lot of creativity as well.
Arun is asking, being a consultant, did your job role get affected due to the pandemic, and how far do you think this role will get affected due to the future recessions?
I think nobody is living in a bubble which is not affected by the pandemic. Everybody's job is affected, and I think for us the job has, so thankfully for consulting, because we solve problems, right? So for us it's not that bad, because whenever there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, our role becomes even more, because the clients would want us more. But yes, it's become difficult in the sense that we need to really learn ourselves, because every client just asks us what should we do. So we are equally, we don't have the answer yet, because it's such uncertain times, but we have to make sure we are one step ahead and we are giving them some solutions which will be useful. Otherwise we are not relevant. So I think the difficult part for us is to become relevant and adapt very, very, very quickly. As I gave an example, like, now every education institute or even the government department has to become digitally savvy. Like, you have to go into digital education. So a lot of clients are coming to us and saying, okay, help us become digital. So we haven't done a lot of digital projects because that was never our forte. But now we have to quickly learn and adapt. Otherwise, they'll go to another consulting firm. So obviously we have to respond very quickly, otherwise we'll lose business, and business in these times is very, very precious. So we can't lose that. So I've been working, I don't know, 16 hours a day, working weekends, everything, because we are trying so hard to make sure we retain our clients. So yeah.
So you were also talking about how they should be definitely working on upskilling themselves during this time. So a few people are asking, what skills should maybe an MBA graduate should have, which are relevant and important in today's corporate world? Which course, if there are any courses that you would recommend as well?
So I would definitely recommend business analytics as a course, and you would find that in Coursera. You would find it in a lot of different, whatever your preferred education provider is. But I think business analytics is something which is really, really critical. And I saw another question which says other skills in Tableau and SPSS and business analytics. But Tableau is very different than business analytics. So Tableau helps you present the data in a good way. But business analytics, there are a lot of these softwares and there are a lot of these programs that you can learn, which can help you process data in a quicker way. I feel, according to me, that's a really, really important skill to have. And another thing that you can do, which will be helpful if you've not made a lot of presentations in your previous life, or you're not very good with Excel, business analytics is the next level, right? But if you're not good with basic Excel and you're not good with intermediate Excel, I think it's a great idea to do that as well. And you have a lot of these LinkedIn batches that you can put on your Excel levels, because especially if people who want to get into finance or want to get into more hardcore consulting, not education or something sustainability, they would definitely need very, very good levels of Excel. And it's surprisingly hard to find. So if you don't have that, because that's the basic minimum that they look for. So if you don't have that yet, it's a good idea to hone in your presentation skills, to hone in your Excel skills as well, before you move on to business analytics or Tableau or Power BI.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions?
Sorry, one more thing. Even you could even look at automation. So there are a lot of these automation softwares which companies have started using. So you could also look at doing some automation courses.
I think I will give you another 2 minutes to ask 1 or 2 more questions. I don't have any other questions on my screen right now. If you have any other questions, do type them out right now.
I'm also just looking for questions that maybe we've missed.
So Aniket is asking, are you talking about automation with respect to only consulting or in general?
So automation is pretty general. I don't actually I don't know, because the automation that I'm talking about is basically what's happening is that a lot of manual processes are getting automated. So people are asking for example, if you're in a financial, any company, right, who has invoicing, and it's a manual invoicing as of now. So there are ways to do automate that whole process, and that actually helps. I mean, if there's one person who is dedicatedly doing invoicing, it can help replace that one person, and can be just an automated process. So for that, like I remember there was a program called Blue Prism, which I got trained on. So that's basically writing code for automation of these small processes. So I'm not saying go and get a degree in automation, but if you just know how basic automation is done, how basic coding is done, it's a big value add on your CV. Because imagine if there's a consulting firm who's looking to hire specifically for something which involves automation, and your CV is out there which says automation, and you already know it, and they don't have to get you on board and actually train you. So it's going to be a value add. And also if it's something which interests you, then why not to just get a a course on it and actually put it on your CV.
All right. I don't think that we have any other questions right now. Thank you so much, Malvika, for giving us your time. It was a great session. I'm sure the students would have gotten a lot of insights. Good. I have a lot of messages saying thank you as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here today in today's session. And I hope this session was useful for you as well. So thank you so much, Malvika.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for attending.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kanika.
No problem. Thank you.